My father was in the Navy at the end of the Second World War, so he was fairly keen for me to seek out a career in the Navy.
When I was going to high school, I saw the Navy as being something glamorous and something I wanted to do, so I really wanted to join the Navy when I was 15.
I joined the Navy in July 1963 from Adelaide. I'd been out of high school for about a year and a half, had no direction in my life and figured this would be a way to achieve it.
I joined the Navy as a childhood ambition in 1966, and it was something I wanted to do all my life, and so when it occurred, I went into service as a raw 17-year-old kid.
Well, I'd have to say at 15 I wasn't really cognisant of the war in Vietnam. It wasn't something in my radar before I joined the Navy.
Basically, the Navy told us nothing. What we knew about the Vietnam conflict was that it was a wonderful opportunity to get a war service low-interest home loan.
Before we went, we did have an intelligence briefing, and they made it quite clear that it was probably seen at the time more as a police action than anything. But the actual fighting, we knew very little about it.
Well, I think you'd be really naive if you didn't. It's you joined for that, not so much for the conflict, but you knew that was strong possibility that would happen.
It wasn't really something I thought much about. I suppose as a 17-year-old, 18-year-old kid, you're there to do a job, and you did what you were asked to do.
Part of our upbringing really was we're part of a team. If the nation decided that they were going to go to war, then I'd be there to do my bit.
Vietnam was never mentioned to us at all. I joined HMAS Sydney in 1965. My first trip to Vietnam, we didn't even know we were going to Vietnam. And we left. We know that we were going north, but where we were going, nobody knew. And we weren't told until we actually sailed through the heads that we were actually on our way to Vietnam.
We were posted in HMAS Sydney, so our job was to take troops from Sydney up into Vung Tau, disgorge them, and then bring troops back to Australia.
I did the last 8 trips on HMAS Sydney, bringing the guys home from Vietnam.
A call to the Vung Tau ferry.
We unloaded the 1st Battalion, they got off, then we unloaded all the equipment. We had to make sure that the musicians got up there, that the equipment got up there, the fuel got up there, the food got up there, all those sort of things, because without that logistic support, the chap in the front wouldn't be able to exist.
Well, there's no doubt that the predominant work was done by Army and to a lesser extent Air Force, but Navy played an important role. We had destroyers on the gun line for at least 4 to 5 years. We had naval clearance divers in the riverine operations. We had naval helicopters, and we had HMAS Sydney going up and back to Vung Tau, taking the Army and bringing the Army home.
Naval warfare, even shooting bullets into the jungle, is a remote thing. There's nothing horrible that you see unless the ship gets a thump and your mates are carved up.
We never went ashore, of course. You could see bombing and that from the ship itself. Whether it was in the palm or whatever, I don't know, but you could certainly see it.
We had very little information of what was happening around us. We knew that at any point in time the island across from Vung Tau was active insurgents area, and we're in their gun range. We could have been hit at any stage.
We had Chinook helicopters taking supplies and troops from the deck of HMAS Sydney to Vung Tau and returning with bullet holes in them, so it became much more real at that point in time.
I guess you always feel that you're in danger. I mean, we were attacked one night by a Viet Cong swimmer. They swim out into the channel, and they have a device which is floated in 2 20-litre drums full of explosives, ship, and they would have some kind of detonation device, and they also carried limpet mines.
And we had snipers on the wings of the bridge and any other high position in the ship, and we had a seaboat over the side dropping scare charges around the ship at intervals to stop any infiltrators coming down the Mekong, and they often had a couple of bullets through each one, or the scare charges going off to do it.
Dangers weren't much for us. The dangers are more for the Army guys who were serving ashore. But clearly it was a large ship. It would have been a prize ship to destroy, and we were very vigilant to keep it safe.
I can remember we received a call from some of our own guys that were in the Long Highs, which is a mountain range close to the coast near Nui Dat, and they were caught in a valley with a machine gun either end, So using one of their army spotters they called in Perth for naval gunfire support. Ironically, the sighting shot was the one that took out one of the machine guns, and the second shot got the second one. So our guys were able to then take charge of the situation, and we just backed them up with naval gunfire support until they were safe.
Whether Australia should have been in the war or not, we all have our personal views on that, and it's certainly discussed amongst your shipmates. But
Now, today, looking back, I don't think we should have been there, and I think the worst thing was that my actions, along with a lot of others, assisted in the killing of fellow human beings.
I'm proud to be a veteran of the Vietnam War and also of the Malaysian conflict. I think I did a job, and it's like all servicemen, you join up to do a task. The government sends you off to do that particular task. You do it to the best of your ability. Now, whether or not it's right or whether it's wrong, it's not up to me to judge.
I saw it as an important thing because not only was there warfare going on, but we had our guys in country as medical teams. We're doing septic tanks and stuff like that for them to try and make their life a bit better. So yeah, there was a lot of good things going on. Unfortunately, because people being killed and blood and gore's real good to get on the TV. Unfortunately, the news crews got hold of that, and that's what you actually saw on the TV when you're sitting watching it at night.
I think that was probably the most disappointing thing for me, because I saw these army guys come back very tired. They'd done a great job. They'd served their country as they'd been asked, and they came back to a very unreceptive audience in Australia.
When Perth headed home, it was very disappointing when we got there because all the wives and children and our family and friends were waiting on the wharf to welcome us back, and the Maritime Union refused to supply tugs to berth the ship. We had to get the two ship's divers to swim in with 2 lines to eventually haul some ropes over so we could pull the ship in using our own devices. And as the guys were climbing up the ladders, these painters and dockers or whatever they were actually standing on people's hands and fingers and pushing them back in the water so they couldn't get on the wharf to do their job.
So because of the trouble with the long-haired layabouts who protested against the war, etc., the services and chiefs decided that they should have civilian clothing to be worn ashore, but people forgot we still had short back and sides, so we still stood out like pimples on a pumpkin and still abused and spat on, and it was very uncomfortable.
Whether or not you'd been to Vietnam or whatever, anybody in uniform were automatically sort of howled down.
At the time, there was a lot of agitation by students, and quite cheerfully we could have gone out and done them over just as much as we did the Vietnamese. It was very, very nasty.
At that time there was a massive protest march down King William Street, and they were carrying North Vietnamese and Viet Cong flags as well as Russian flags, and there was a hell of a fight in King William Street, and a lot of servicemen got locked up that night or that day, spent overnight, but they were released in the morning with no charges.
We felt cheated because we were the first veterans, if you like, who came back from a conflict where our service was denigrated rather than being recognised.
I felt at the time we were doing the right thing. We were doing what was expected of us. We thought that we were stopping the communism from rolling further in our direction. Whether that turned out to be the case or not is still questionable 40 years later.